Buenas. Bueno es Liliana.
Are we ready? Yeah. Is everybody back? This is your numbers. Time, the time is in seconds, right?
Yes.
The time is in seconds. So posture A, 600, 600. And so we have a mean of 413, 196, 79, 140, and 46. Okay? So, in a minute, I'm gonna, after I explain something to you, I'm gonna have Samuel come and explain why it's not important. But it kind of matches what we thought. Where do you think the highest time was going to be? Posture number A, because it was the easiest. Okay? Posture number 2 is at 196. Do you see that? All right. And the one that kind of maybe surprises me a little bit is 79 on posture number 3. We expect it to be lower, but then the D is a little bit higher in terms of 140 and then 46. So in essence, other than the reversal of C and D, it kind of follows that the harder a system is, the what? The shorter the length of. The harder you are on your body, the shorter your life. Is that fair enough? Samuel, explain why is one posture more difficult than the other?
first of all, whenever you're doing yoga, it's recommended that each posture lasts at least 2 minutes. So if we were going to go by that rule, we'll see that there's 2 postures that meet the 120 second span. And you'll say, okay, that's where I need to work at. And the reason being why 2 minutes is that it takes time for your body to adapt. That's the first thing. And it's not just adapting, then you got to focus on the exercise or the posture itself so that your body gets the benefits of it. And we see on the lower ones, the low, or let's say the hardest ones that we see on C was the posture where we had to keep our balance, and that's obviously not as easy as the first one because you're gaining full balance on the floor on the first one, and some of us are more flexible on legs, some others are not on the hip, and we see a couple of zeros there, which indicates that we need to work out more on our hips. But the majority of human beings are able to obtain those big numbers on the first one. Whereas where we're doing things that are not normal to us, like standing on one foot, it's not normal. So obviously you expect to have less time while doing that. And when you add things like keeping your hands up and bring your leg up, then we're adding variation to our normal posture. When we sit, most of the time we're able to do that because if we don't have a chair, that's how we'll do it. But let me ask you, how many times during the day you're doing this? I don't think you're expected to do that. So obviously, you're bringing variation to your daily life. So that's the reason being why it's a lower number. Now the other one, which was this posture, is also not a very usual thing you'll do during the day, except if you're playing basketball, maybe you're like stopping somebody from shooting. But other than that, it's not relevant to our life, normal life. So obviously that adds another variation. Whereas the one that where we're laying down with our 2 hands there and just bringing the leg up, then that's a bit easy because again you're getting more balance on the floor with your 2 hands and one of your knees. So those makes it easy. So what's the point in this? When you add more variation, more complexity, in other words, to a posture, the harder it is to sustain it for a longer period of time. And that's because your body is not used to it. So once you get more practice, obviously you'll adapt. And when you adapt more easily, you can sustain it for longer. And that's, yoga basically is like a relationship to life. So we see here in life how things adapt, how they sustain, and can live for longer. Yoga is a system that helps the body to live longer, basically, so that you gain strength, you gain flexibility, and the more flexibility you have, the more you can adapt to things and can be stronger at the end. So the system that we have followed is whenever you're doing yoga, you start with the postures on the floor because they're the easiest ones. So any posture that you see that you're doing, like sitting or that most of your body weight's on the floor, are easy. The ones in which you're standing will become more difficult over time. And then there's the ones in which you bring your body upside down and you'll have your head on the floor and then your legs up. That will be the extra difficulty, which we're not going to do now. We don't want to break your neck. So we'll leave those for later. And so that's the yoga principle about gaining more life to your body. So
the key is this, and Enrique is going to show you another slide before we go on, is there is a reason that one is more difficult than the other. It is not simply because you're doing this or this, there is a reason. And what did he say? Anything that is on the floor seems to be easier. Anything that you do on an everyday basis seems to be easier. If it is not on the floor and you don't do it on a regular basis, then it becomes more difficult for you to do. A reason behind this. You want to show them that before I start? Okay, he's going to show you one more thing, because there's two kind of measures, right? You want to talk to me? It's not showing. There.
So guys, if we were to evaluate these postures that you just did, we have two key measures that we utilized. The first one, which is the average time. The second, the variation or standard deviation that we have in regards to that time. So if we were to rank these postures from easiest to hardest based on the time that it took to do the posture, then the system would tell us that we need to rearrange postures C and D, because posture A was considered the easiest, hence the longest the time that you could hold that position, right?
I want to know who's 2 and 4, 0 and 0. Who's 0 and 0? Really?
I got a bad knee, I literally couldn't bend it in far enough.
You were the other 0? Why? Bad knee. Bad knee. Okay.
So, if you notice from the data and all the irregularities that it has, we want to take a parameter not only in the average time, but also the variation that occurred within. Remember that we were saying one of the principles that we're gonna aim for all the initiatives that you're gonna be analyzing as the reduction of lead time, right? So if we were to work on this, and if we were to compare these things, one versus the other, is it fair to say that if we wanted to improve the yoga posture system, we need to work in the one that has the shortest amount of time? If you just do it the opposite, what we want here is not to make it shorter, we want to make it larger, right? So is it fair to say that we can compare that with the other postures? Why not? Level of difficulty is different, right? Okay. So, and the other thing is, you without being prepared for this, even though that Sam helped you to warm up a little bit so that you didn't get injured, there is some other aspect that we need to consider, which is the other principle that we were talking about, which is what? You remember the second principle? Reduction of lead time would be the first one. The second, reduction of variation, right? So if we were to consider variation, we take the standard deviation here. Now tell me if the standard deviation is enough to compare between each of these postures. Which one has the highest variation according to standard deviation? The first one. All right, so we are getting a new insight on the first position, right? Which is what? Now, being the easiest, it also tells you that it has the highest amount of variation because you see 2 zeros in there. Now, if we were to base the difficulty of this only in the variation part, would that be fair to compare? Can we judge just the difficulty based on the variation? If we take the higher variation, that means that has the highest amount of difficulty among the members at least. Is that fair to compare? Yes or no? Why not?
Because there were some exceptions.
There were some exceptions. And let's see. The time here for posture A is the largest, right? And the variation, according to standard deviation, is also the largest. What do we see here? posture E is the shortest time, and the standard deviation is also the shortest, okay? So the standard deviation is based upon what? It's based upon the reference of how long could you hold it. So does it make a reference of difficulty in the variation? No. Now, why not? The magnitude of comparison from one posture to the other is completely different. Do you see that? Large time, large standard deviation. Short time, short standard deviation. So in order to make a parameter of comparison, there is another indicator that we need to bring in, which is that CV that we say there. Anybody knows that what that stands for? Coefficient of variation, which is what?
The rate of the mean alongside with the standard deviation.
So we are utilizing a ratio of the standard deviation against its average. So the coefficient of variation is simply take this number right here, divided by this number right here. That gives us a parameter of comparison based on the magnitude. Now we can compare the numbers on the variation, right? And that's something that you're going to learn in future lectures, specifically oriented to what you're going to be doing. But now we can compare the variation. So if we were to rank them, which is the one that varies the highest, now we can utilize this rank right here. Because the coefficient of variation, see, if we were to take standard deviation, we would assume this is the one that has the least variation because it's the smallest number. But that's not okay because it's also the one that took the shortest time, right? So now that we put this coefficient of variation into game, we see that the easiest or the least variation exists in which one? This one. Which of the postures has the highest variation is not even the one that has the 249. Which one of these postures has the highest variation in respect to the mean? B. So what does that mean? What does that tell you? It tells you that the level of skill among everybody that had the B posture was very, very different. Okay? From all the postures that you did, the B would be the one that was the higher variation. So you see how the perspective changes in regards to time and then variation. So which one would you pick to start training everybody? Pursuing what? So that everybody gets a similar level of skill, right? Okay? All right.
So, what have we learned? Do we agree that no system is infinite? Because my perception, and correct me, even in the United States, when you are in business and engineering, nobody talks to you about the life of a system. You are supposed to go in and fix a system, but then you have never looked at the life of a system. You always assume in every project that you did, what? That the system that you have developed has an infinite life. Yes or no? Do you think that's true? So in the assumption, basically, of everything that we're doing is wrong because it is not an infinite solution. 2, that the outcome, what is the outcome? The outcome is the life of that system is dependent upon variables associated with the system. For example, in the life of a human being, we said it's exercise and happiness and eating habits and what my family's DNA is and other stuff. What does this tell us? This tells us what? That I don't control the length of my life.
What can I play around with? As an engineer or a business student that is designing systems, you don't control this. What do you control? You control this. You control this. You control this. So when you say, I am going to improve a system, you cannot fix the improvement of the system. You have to translate it to something else. These are outcomes. Those are the things. For example, if I said, extend your life, I just cannot say, oh, extend your life. We can work on the exercise. We can look at the happiness. So these are certain variables that you control in the system that what allows you to do what? Improve the performance of the system, improve the length of life of that system. Now, I'm going to show you, probably this is number 3 point. And this is something that you have to work on. We will improve upon it, but this is the first time that I've linked it forward. Sustainability means what? Extending the life of a system. Yes? We decided that at some level, if it is profitable and competitive and takes care of its people and has market share and all of these things, that this system will sustain. We agree with that? This will happen not because you want to. This will happen not because you want to. This will happen not because you want to. This will not happen because you want to. These are consequences. So you do not control this. What is it that you control? This is the result of the work that you do. If you exercise, you will be in shape. If you eat right, you will be healthy. In the systems that we are talking about, let me show you how we're going to play this. You know what you're going to focus in on? To make this happen, make this happen, make this happen, make this happen. This is what? What is this? Throughput. Throughput is what? The number of units of patients served in a day. The number of products produced in a day. Remember throughput? If I look at throughput, how can I enhance throughput? Remember we talked about this. Throughput, what is this? This is not critical thinking. This is from the time I start something to the time I finish something. What your idea is, how do I reduce this? If I'm studying for something, to get the same grade, how can I reduce the amount of time I study? If I'm treating a patient, how does this system reduce the time it requires to treat a patient? If I'm cooking something, how can I cook the same amount of food, as good, in less amount of time? How? Again, I will show you the difference between cycle time and lead time. So either one, you think about what? Time it takes in the system. How do I fix this? I can fix flow. Remember, Lego exercise number 1? What did you do between exercise number 1 and 3? You increase the flow. How? I balanced the lines out. I made it one-piece flow. I made this. There are reasons on how you do this. You increase the flow. But because this system did not have a lot of variation, you will reduce variation. You will reduce disruption, and you will increase the quality of life. These are the principles, okay, that will allow you to do this. These are the principles that will allow you to do this so that you can do this. How are you going to fit these principles? These are the tools that you are learning in your universities and here. These are all the tools that will allow you to control flow, to allow you to control variation, to allow you to control disruption, to allow you to increase the quality of life. This is what you study. This is why you study. This is what you are trying to accomplish from an engineering or business perspective to allow you to extend the life of a system. This is the way you do it. So where is your expertise? Why? For what reason? Are we okay? Go ahead. The presentation is on here. Now, I'm going to show you if it's okay. We've set the stage. Is everybody's mind changed? How many people came here knowing that there's every system has a life? Say yes. Say yes. All right, everybody. You understand that the life of a system is dependent upon a sequence of things that you're going to do. What you do on your education is controlling this. If we can teach you this portion of it, this automatically will happen. Are we good?